Oh, hey.
Welcome to our first episode of Chronicles of the Phoenix in 2026.
Whoa.
We made it.
We made it.
How was your holiday season?
Well, my holiday season was extremely relaxing, more so than I had anticipated because we were one of the many that experienced the flu.
No.
Turned into a sinus infection.
Damn it.
But it's okay because I read 3 books.
Okay.
My daughter read 4. We relaxed. I made cinnamon rolls with my daughter from scratch.
Oh, I did that too.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh,
Did you do the kind where you pour the cream over it before you bake it?
yes.
Wasn't it amazing?
So delicious.
Never tasted anything like that.
So good. Yeah, they were delicious, but it took a long time.
Yeah. It's a labor of love. I made mine the night before Christmas and then finished them and baked them and made the icing on Christmas morning.
That was our intention. It did not happen.
Well, you guys had a few things that got in the way.
Yeah, it's okay. How was yours?
It was pretty good. It was a really needed break. And I think we all were really running right up to the holiday with a lot going on, just busy. And then even through the holiday, I definitely took note in my mind of things that I need to do differently next year, like maybe not making 4 different kinds of cookies and then not decorating the ones that needed icing to decorate them until Christmas Eve, but also them being out of the cookie icing that I like to buy that's just pre-done. So I had to make it also from scratch.
Yeah, that was aggressive.
It was aggressive and it made me a little stressed out on Christmas Eve. So I immediately was like, next year, we're doing 2 kinds of cookies. Because honestly, I still have 3 boxes of them because everyone had cookies, so nobody ate all of my cookies. It was a little overkill. So I tried to balance both what I know I kind of went overboard on. I tend to want to try to do everything.
Yeah.
But definitely keeping the cinnamon rolls. That is a labor of love that's worth it.
Okay.
Cookies, take a step back next year.
Okay. We did want to make scones, but we did not get there. So that's still, maybe we'll make Valentine's Day scones.
Can we do a baking episode where it's we're doing a cooking show, but we just talk while we bake?
Yeah. A non-video.
Maybe we have to video that one. Maybe we could go to your kitchen,
Okay.
set up a camera, and bake while we talk.
I think we should do it at a different kitchen. I feel like we should borrow some. Could someone that has a really nice kitchen phone in and let us know?
That's definitely not mine.
It's not mine.
Okay. We need a studio kitchen.
We need a studio kitchen that we could do our first live episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds not aggressive at all.
No.
Well, the question I had for you was, last episode, we helped you find your word for 2026. And I was curious if you stuck with it, because it was sort of like a rapid-paced, which not that you have a problem with that.
I love rapid.
A rapid-paced process to just get there. And we said, you're going to marinate on it a little bit. See how it feels. What did you decide?
I marinated and I went from, I'm not sure it fits, to it definitely fits.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like I'm revitalizing. And the way that I thought about it is that I want to really keep the good and nourish all of the things that are going well in my life.
Yep.
And be intentional about shedding the things that aren't or that are no longer serving me, and just continue to propel myself forward in this revitalizing way in terms of, when you revitalize a community or an area, and a restoration project,
Yeah, looking at what you can be doing to bring that life back into a community or a space or something. And that's in your life.
Yeah, I'm revitalizing myself.
You are. You look so alive.
Thank you.
And after going through all of that illness,
I'm trying to reverse age.
I think you have nailed it. This is good.
Thank you. What is your word? What did you come up with?
Well, it took me longer than I thought. It took a while to unwind from the holiday, like I was talking about with the busyness. So I feel like at first when I was really okay, I have to get this going, I felt I hadn't processed this past year. I know we talked about it together, but I still had a lot I needed to really wrap my head around and feel because I was able to look back on, I had journaled a process of this last year. So I looked at that and saw how I got to my word for last year. And then what I loved is I had written like some goals for myself, some things that I wanted to think about. And so I spent some time just really looking at that and how I had applied it this year. And that felt really good because I did a lot last time, much like we talked about, of like, what do I want this year to feel like? And so I was able to look at those feelings I wanted to create and see like how I lived into that in a very direct way. Once I did that, I just like replicated the process, and I found that I kept coming back to trying to figure out how to like lean into things. And I was journaling just about like what it would feel like for me to take advantage of opportunities, to just say yes to things, because like I've said, I am like slow to warm, sometimes slow to take risk, and it's a part of my personality. So finally, when I was writing, this one word stuck out in what I had written, which was the word engage.
I love it.
And it was really like, I see the word engage as like being a part of something, saying yes to something, like clicking in with something, like I'm in it and I'm a part of a flow of energy. Like it just feels like plugged in or like connected, and also being willing to just do and like say yes and try things. And so I stuck with engage, and now I have a really loudly colored picture
Yeah.
that I put on my phone, and I have caught myself probably 4 or 5 times already in the first 8 days of this month seeing that and being like, all right, I'm gonna do it. Like
Then
I wanted to say no to this thing, but now I'm saying yes, and it's very different, but I think it's working.
I love that. I feel like you were starting to do that towards the end of last year, so it makes sense that that's the
Yeah.
word that like leapt out to you.
Yeah, I just need something that continues to carry my motivation forward, which is a bit about what we'll talk about today too.
Yeah. So you made me a really beautiful picture to represent that I'm also holding on to. So I wonder, can you like post that with our stuff?
Oh yeah, I can put them like at least on our social media for sure, and I can see if I can even link them somehow in a description to this pod so people can see what we made.
I feel like I want you to be able to share it with our friends.
Thank you. You know what? I will.
Yeah.
We'll at the very least do a post on socials with our words and the images and share a little bit about what that means to us for this year. That's a great idea.
Cool. Thanks.
So today we have an exciting conversation we're both, I think, looking forward to having. We have mentioned many, many times on this pod already our love of the Enneagram. And I just was listening to Amy Poehler's podcast episode she just did with Gwyneth Paltrow. And they were talking about Enneagram, who apparently they're both obsessed with the Enneagram.
Oh,
Gwyneth is a 1,
interesting. Okay.
and Amy Poehler is an 8. And she said she's always mistyped. So anyway, if you want to listen to other people's perspective on this in kind of a funny way, they talk about a lot of other things, but that episode was really, really good. And Amy talks about it a lot. She's obsessed. So she tries to get every guest that she has on to talk about this. But anyway, we love the Enneagram and we've talked a lot about it. So we thought it would make sense to have the opportunity to share a little more in depth with everybody about what it is and how it helps us in our day-to-day life related to our personal lives, but also a bit tied into our business too. Because I know that a lot of you know this podcast is sort of like a sister to the development of our business, Phoenix Rise Consulting, where we work with businesses to help their leadership teams and like essentially to be successful in their businesses, but through the lens of understanding the behaviors of like your team and yourself. And yeah, so we hope today that there's an opportunity for everyone to both get something personal out of this conversation and understanding the Enneagram, and also maybe a little bit of a tidbit of how this could be helpful in relationships and in work. So to kick us off with what the Enneagram is, the Enneagram is a personality framework that has 9 core types. And so each of those types is driven by a distinct motivation or fear. And the reason this is important is because it allows us to see ourselves through the lens of what is truly driving us and other people that we know. And by doing so, it also allows us to really examine ourselves and make changes aligned with ourselves that will actually stick, because we can see it through the lens of like, what's my core motivation? And so like we've talked about in other episodes, things being aligned is going to be the most sustainable. So we'll talk about how that works individually and also in relationship.
So, giving just a quick snapshot of each type, there's a lot of other places you can go way more in depth, but type 1 strives for integrity and perfection.
Mm-hmm.
Type 2 is motivated by being loved and needed. Type 3 is driven by achievement and success. Type 4 seeks uniqueness and authenticity. Type 5 needs knowledge and competence. Type 6 craves security and support. Type 7 pursues freedom and fun. Type 8 wants control and strength. And type 9 desires peace and harmony. And, we find, as Courtney said, in our practice and our life, that when you understand people's core motivation, you can unlock behavior change. But when you understand that, you're able to then figure out the drivers
Mm-hmm.
and then help navigate the next step
Mm-hmm.
in communication and find other pathways to create movement.
I think that is also a great way for people to see one another from a less maybe personalized standpoint. Like, I think as humans, we're kind of wired and geared towards looking at things through our own vision at all times. And we have to do a lot of work to take the blinders off and not just see the world through our own view. And I love the Enneagram as a tool to help understand why not only myself, but the people around me are doing what they do, without it really being about me. It's so much more about each individual.
Totally. And I think we've talked about this in other episodes, but how freeing it is when you know you're feeling some sort of way, but you don't know why. And then when you're able to unlock it, you feel so much better.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a tool that gives you a guidepost
Right.
that helps you have that insight, it's helpful. And then when you have that guidepost to help you understand your peers, if they're at work, or your friends or your family, it just does depersonalize.
Right. So you can see that when you understand people differently in the family system, for example, the same thing can be applied to colleagues and coworkers and things like that, because you recognize that we can sort of leverage strengths, but also understand kind of what makes us all tick. And when we have that understanding, we just, it's kind of that better together mentality of what do we all bring to the table? But if we need to make change on this team, because not everything's perfect and no team is, then we have this way of really anchoring change to something that will stick.
Yeah. And I think about the first model that you and I were both trained in, functional family therapy. And one of the things that always stuck to me is that, there's very few assholes in this world that are true assholes, right? Their intent is to hurt.
Right.
Most people's intention is pure and good,
Mm-hmm.
but they miss the mark.
Yep.
So when you look at that, understanding we would talk about it from the perspective of the benign or noble intention behind the behavior. And that changes everything. When you zoom out and move away from just looking at the behavior and trying to understand the motivation beneath it and the intention, it doesn't change the impact. And that's what in business and family systems and stuff, your intent doesn't matter, the impact matters. So you have to change that in the process. So because you have to fix the impact because the impact's problematic. But if you can understand the intention, you can then change the way you do it.
Yeah, because you're recognizing this is meeting a need for me, but maybe the way I'm doing this is not landing. If my goal is to keep the peace and I know that I avoid a difficult conversation that I don't want to have because I just want to keep things calm and easygoing and not get into difficult stuff at home, for example, let's say. But then I am kind of shut down or not really saying anything then because maybe on the outside that looks like I'm isolating or I'm not really engaging, to use that word, with my family because I just am navigating that in my own head. My intention might be to just keep the peace, but the way I'm showing up absolutely shows that I've created a dynamic where now I'm removed from the situation and I'm not actually engaging. When I can understand what I'm trying to do and I recognize that that's me trying to keep peace, but it's not actually doing what I'm trying to do, the impact is that it's actually further isolating me instead of keeping things peaceful and my relationships good. Then I can encourage myself to do it differently and say, let me say and name what my experience is.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's a great example. And motivation is the engine behind behavior change, as you said. And when goals align with core values, success rates soar.
I love that.
What we know, I think we've kind of been talking about this, but like individually, it helps us identify our blind spots and our growth paths. As you're describing with families, it reduces conflict by understanding different needs, which is exactly what you just described. The different contact functions potentially, but also when you understand which style is more
like assertive
versus, And like we've talked about, I, as a 7, process very fast and am more comfortable with conflict. So I'm happy to have a conversation quickly, but I also am avoidant in a different way. So the way that we've navigated that is I might drop an idea to you and say, let me know what you think after you've had time to mull it.
Right. It just allows us to understand the way each of us tick and what the best combined way for us to work together is, which is to sort of try to meet in the middle on it, where, I'm also cognizant of not wanting to kind of take forever to process something, because I know it's important for the momentum that we have to keep going is to try to get to the point of a decision or get to the point of giving feedback and not just marinate for too long, because then we kind of lose the steam.
Well, and it improves collaboration and leadership by leveraging strengths. And I think that's what you and I have figured out how to do so beautifully. Like, I'll give you an idea. You'll take time to think about it and process it, and it makes the idea even better. But you're also okay with me poking you and being like, what did you think? Where are you at? Like, it doesn't offend you when I come back because I can't stop myself from wanting to move to action quickly. Sometimes you have to say, like, I still need more time or back off. Like in the past, you said, we have too many irons in the fire. We actually can't do that. You know what I mean? Like, you've also...
Yeah, like found a way to balance like the energy and like the way that we, what we have that we're engaged in. And I think it is like we bring a nice balance to that. And I think we're always trying to strive for like what is the kind of middle ground that keeps us moving forward, but also allows us to be thoughtful and planful around how we're doing what we do and building that out. But I think you describe it perfectly. I think that's the dynamic that in relationship we want everybody to understand is just when you know yourself better and you understand what you need and you know that in someone else, you approach that person in a different way. Then you see the success of that. You see the sustainability of that process. We've worked together for years, so we really have honed this. This didn't happen overnight, but now I feel like we just have such a good flow. We know the pace, kind of how that works, and every once in a while we have to adjust it, but it's sort of natural at this point because we know that this is the process that works.
Right. What's one way understanding your family's type has improved communication?
In terms of communication, because I've talked to everybody I can possibly talk to about this, I feel like now between my family, my friends, it was actually almost a year ago that you and I presented in my town at a meeting on this topic. So a bunch of people of my family and friends then also came and got to hear us talk about this. And so since then, I feel like I've just been kind of flooded with everybody's like questions and feedback. And so I've had a great experience of getting to really know my friends and family through this lens because they bought in and have all checked out what their types are. And I find that for communication, it has allowed each of us to be able to take a pause between what our instinctual response is and then acting, if that makes any sense. Like when I might know something triggers me, family, I feel like tends to be our most triggering entity. Like we've grown up in a system. That system replays the same patterns over and over again, I think, throughout life. And even when you've moved forward in a different way, like they circle back. So there's so many triggers that can come up when families are interacting, whether that's like your family of origin, your family, that you've now created in your life, like all of that just can be the people we've spent the most time with in our life usually. So I know if I find a response, let's say in a text from one of my family members to be off-putting to me or triggering to me or not really understanding necessarily of how I operate, kind of like what you just described. Like it takes a lot of grace to give people, like lend that level of, oh, this is how you operate. I'm going to work with you in that way. I think family tends to sometimes default to just like what they do.
Yep.
So if I get a text that is from a family member that kind of hits me the wrong way, my initial reaction is to just react to that, you know?
Mhm.
And a lot of times for me, what that would look like is I am either going to a place I don't normally go, which is more of like a snappy, you know, maybe passive aggressive place, which I know at this point is more driven by like anxiety of this not keeping the peace, right? It's sort of like if you valued my peace, you wouldn't say that to me like that. So now I'm mad and I'm going to say
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
about it, right? But what understanding my family's types has done is it helps me see that that's what I'm doing, but it also helps me recognize like what could their motivation for this conversation be? My sister is an Enneagram 1, and so that's more that perfectionistic type. So the lens that she might look through is going to be through a lens of like wanting things to be perfect, wanting to get it right. And sometimes that can come across as, well, I really want this thing to change. I might take offense in one way of being like, what do you mean? Like, let's just do what we were going to do. I want to keep the peace. Like, this is great. You know, why are you mixing this up now?
Right.
And
Yeah.
her brain is going towards a like, this has to be perfect. Like, we're investing in this. This should be the best it can be. And so we have different values there. And so it's allowed us to then go, hold on a second. Like I can now say, okay, that might be the perfectionistic thing. And she can also see that, well, sometimes you like to keep things like really chill and not bring things up. So we have to sort of decide like, where are we landing on this together? Like maybe it's not like one's right or the other is wrong, but we could find some middle ground on how we feel and kind of reassure one another that either the plan we have is great and we don't have to change it, or maybe we meet in the middle and, you know, I also don't have to worry about not telling so-and-so, you know, maybe you should change that because maybe that's not such a bad thing to do.
A similar situation. My sister is still discerning like what her number is, but she thinks she might be a 1 also, and which means that like she really needs to have a plan, and her family very much needs to have a plan and know like what time you're going to be going somewhere, pack for a vacation a week in advance. As you know, I might pack an hour before maybe a vacation, and like, you know, and I remember we went on a vacation we rented this like island like in Connecticut, you know, like it's a Boy Scout camp.
I remember that. Yeah.
And my sister and my sister-in-law and everybody were like really wanting to, which makes sense. Like I get that this is logical. Like who's bringing what food? Like we shouldn't all just bring food and like have a random amount of stuff. And my 7 brain was like, this is so overwhelming to like have this level of planning. Can't we just like show up and like we'll just make it work? So I know that like my need for freedom and flexibility and always wanting to like be able to change my mind and know that like I might not want a sandwich by Friday, and having to plan for a sandwich on Tuesday really doesn't feel good to me.
No.
But my sister needs to go to the grocery store or put it in the app so she knows what to order, you know, like.
Yeah, and she probably wants to make sure everybody's also happy with it and like that she does it the right way.
Yes. So I have to compromise and recognize that it's okay. And if I decide on Friday, but the order that I put in for or whatever that we agreed, if I change my mind, I can go to the store and get something else.
You could.
And the same thing about like picking a time to go somewhere. I really like to work on the ish. That does not work for my family.
Mm-hmm.
They really like a hard time.
That's such a good example. And especially when you have multiple people, right? Like that's the thing about family work teams. Like you're really navigating many different personalities at once. So it can be challenging just in the way you described to meet everybody's needs at the same time. And honestly, you sort of have to let go of that in some ways because you really can't possibly meet everybody's needs at all times. However, I think most people who work to understand themselves and those around them can also understand like, okay, like this is so necessary for this person to be doing it this way that I can sort of become more flexible to meet them where they are, knowing that it's not about me.
Yeah.
Because when we think it's about us and it's like, oh, you're just telling me I'm way too flexible or I don't like a schedule, you know, and it becomes like a negative towards, in this example, like towards you about like you not, you know, conforming essentially with family, that's going to feel super different. And you're probably even less likely to want to be like, oh, I can compromise on that. When the flip is recognizing that that has nothing to do with you. It's really just for this person to be able to achieve what they're trying to accomplish for a big group of people. They need some planning. Like that
Right.
makes sense. So, how do you feel like with what you just described? If you were to think of it through the lens of a team, how can leaders use the insight of understanding themselves and their teams to motivate their team without micromanaging them?
I think that understanding your teams, and we've done this a lot in the past, and I think it's what we do in our business, is really looking at, so with each grouping, there's people that operate from gut,
Mm-hmm.
right? The 8s, 9s, and 1s are gut, right? Your intuition is what drives you. The 2s, 3s, and 4s operate from a heart center. Emotional as the driver. And the 5, 6, and 7s are very intellectual. So if you understand sort of the grouping and where your team falls, and there's strength and diversity,
Mm-hmm.
always, right? So if you understand where you fall on the team and what your core motivations are and as we talked about as an individual, every personality has strengths and blind spots.
Yep.
And so if you understand what yours are and what your trigger points are, and you can depersonalize that from you and also step back, right? Like I have to understand as a leader when I'm having a bad day and know that if I'm having a fight with my husband in the morning and I go into work and I get triggered at work, like I'm going to be more reactive.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to check myself
Mm-hmm.
in that sense. And so I think understanding that insight is very helpful
Mm-hmm.
and being able to look at that motivation. So if the fear is, as a leader, we're in a world that AI is moving at a rapid pace, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's taking over the world. We don't know where it's going to go, what's going to come of it. There's so many other, I mean, the news cycle, you can't, for me personally, it's terrifying. I don't know what's going to happen. It's wild how it's impacting businesses, especially small businesses, large, it doesn't matter. And so as a executive, whether you're a CEO or you're board governed, it doesn't matter. You have staff that are relying on you for their jobs or livelihood. That's a lot of pressure.
Yep.
So understanding your fears is super important because your fear is going to be your driver. And if you are a fear-based leader,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to operate from the worst side of yourself.
Mm.
So the Enneagram will help you because that part of yourself is going to be, the negative side of that is going to be how you're going to, the dark side, the shadow side is what it's going to be. So if you understand that side,
Mm-hmm.
you can flip it and get the correct side. So as a 7, if I am afraid of not being successful, and worrying that I'm not going to be able to keep the doors open,
Mm-hmm.
and so then I start taking on way more projects than I can handle, and my staff are burnt, right, as a result. Because that, I think, for a 7 would be the risk,
Mm-hmm.
is that I overdo it because I'm fearful that limited resources, I need to keep taking on, and I have the energy to do it.
Right.
But I might not have the resources within this team to actually do that. And I'm not thinking smart, I'm thinking impulsively.
Yep.
So what I would need to do is to step back and slow down and start thinking strategically, use my entire team
Mm-hmm.
to help me use the 6 who's going to find all the landmines,
Mm-hmm.
right? The 6 is so good at finding the landmines. The 5 is really strategic and they're great researchers. So they're going to be able to help me look at all of that. The 3s are great organizers and managers. They're going to be able to help me put the systems in place together. 8s are great leaders and they're going to be able to get the team together. The 9s are also going to get motivation to everybody and harmonize.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can get everybody doing that, people are going to get back on the mission.
Yep.
And we'll be able to figure out, what do we need to parking lot?
Mm-hmm.
And what do we need to prioritize to get us back on track,
Mm-hmm.
where everybody feels like they have a place in their lane?
Yeah.
and we can move forward now. So to
Right.
me, it's about reliability engineering, right? Like you're really looking at the system and how it's running, what your engine is. And then you're looking at where is the engine breaking down and how do I interrupt it and fix it? And then how do I sustain that long term?
With the entire team being the people who are doing that, right?
The entire team being the people that do that, but with me being like the main piston.
Yeah, you're looking at that full picture, able to see how it's functioning, and then also recognize that I don't have to then go out and micromanage this team to tell them how they're going to do this, but I have natural strengths on my team that are already going to naturally lead in that way, like you just described, where you would send people sort of out on their own tasks to delegate things, break them down in a way where you're leveraging the strength of your team. It doesn't even involve you having to do micromanaging behavior because they're going to naturally kind of do some of those things if you align that with what their strengths are. And like you said, even with the 9s, like they also would have a great perspective on what staff might feel or think of something. And so maybe that's where you're sort of getting a pulse on like, what's the staff's take on this going to be when we implement this, that kind of thing. And I think that's where, you know, in the same way that, you know, our 1s are going to be really great at critiquing, honestly, and like finding the things that could be improved and made better. And our 2s as helpers and people who want to, you know, they're going to want to maybe be a part of training and, you know, supporting people in learning what they need to know, because that's a piece of their strength is being there to help people.
And if you're leveraging everybody's strengths and everybody feels like they're part of the engine and making it run better and moving the engine and moving things forward, and you're creating stability on the team so everybody feels stable and like their job's not going away in a really unstable period of time, and you're actually improving the bottom line as a result of that and potentially increasing the bottom line, which will result in more money. Boom.
Yeah.
You've got a motivated team that's all working for you rather than against you, and you're no longer fear-based.
Right. And you're more likely to retain those staff. Your team is more likely to continue to work together because they're happy with work. Your staff are more likely to stay because they see that they're a part of a system that's working. And I think that ties so beautifully to what you're talking about with like our day-to-day overwhelm and like news and everything going on. Like when we're in a disrupted system that doesn't feel super safe to us, and it sort of just becomes the fabric of what's going on. So when you kind of shrink that down to looking within an organization, like people are more likely to hang in there and be a part of something that they feel safe in and also know their value and can align with the mission.
I also think people and I could be projecting because this is me, but like I think it's true universally and just human. I think people feel safer when they feel like they can be part of the solution.
Yes. Yep.
And I think that when you work in a fear-based place and when you're operating from the fear side of your personality, your staff don't feel like you're being allowed to be part of the solution. And micromanagement is part of that, because when I feel like I'm being micromanaged, I feel like I'm not being allowed to use my full self.
Yep.
And so if my boss pulls back and I'm allowed to engage and use all my strengths, I feel like I'm part of the solution.
Right.
And that improves safety and that increases retention.
But I think that's the benefit of like understanding people. I mean, there's so much depth here, and this is really basically like 1 or 2 lanes of what understanding yourself and in the context of others offers you. But I think everything you just described about how this works on a team is exactly where this can be utilized to help people stay motivated and then have sustainable change and success.
For sure.
So I know we threw a lot at you today. I feel like this was an information-heavy episode, but we're so passionate about it. I think
obviously
this is not the last conversation about Enneagram we'll have. We could probably do 1,000 episodes on it. But first little tidbit, we do have some things we'd love everyone to take away from this episode, though. And the first is we'd love for everybody listening to, if you haven't yet, take a reputable Enneagram assessment. And the one we have found to be most reliable, and we will link it in the description, is through the Enneagram Institute, and it's called the RHETI, RHETI, and it is one that you have to pay for. It's not super expensive, but it gives such a thorough, detailed assessment And the trick with these assessments is that quizzes can be really challenging in terms of how you really identify your number. Many say that, it's just supposed to give you sort of a guideline, and then you have to do a lot of reading and research to see if it aligns for you. But what I think we both love about this particular assessment is there's so much detail in there that it becomes pretty easy to see. And they also highlight kind of your top 3 numbers, essentially, so you can try them on and see if they fit for you.
The other thing that we would love for you to do is reflect on your core motivation and how it shows up in your daily life. We also have a journal prompt for you if you choose to engage in a journal prompt. What fear or desire is behind my biggest goal?
Yes.
And how can I honor my motivation while growing beyond it? That's a good one.
That's a really good one. I'm going to use these and let you know how it goes.
Not being a journaler probably won't do.
It's really sad for me, but I accept that that's a part of you. It's okay.
I'll think about them.
You can think.
Probably write them in my head.
I love it. You're really good at writing in your head.
I do write in my head. Really in depth and sometimes brilliant things in my head. It just doesn't go from my head to anywhere else. I even got an iPad once with the intention of writing, and then I just haven't done it.
It didn't help you?
No.
I am a serial journal buyer. So I have like 50 different journals, and I never finish any of them. I just like pick up a new one and I'll be like, ooh, this will be for this area of my life. I don't know why. And then I get bored of that. Then I go to a different one, and then I'll find them and be like, oh my God, why haven't I been writing in this?
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird process that I have, but when I do it, I love it.
Yeah. I think for me, it's like anything that's rigid, right? Like anything that boxes me in as a finite rule, like I know I'm not going to stick with it. But also like I want to be someone that journals. I want to be someone that meditates, but I'm just not, and I just have to accept that I'm not going to stick with it.
It doesn't align, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be the thing. You can keep doing all of this in your head. It does not need to be put on paper.
That's what it's going to have to be in my head.
Perfect. So journal if you want. Write in your head if you want. Whatever's right for you.
Write on your body.
Oh.
I was looking back at pictures. Apparently, I used to write on myself and people a lot.
Really? You were one of those. I remember those people growing up. I do.
You weren't one of them?
I wrote on my shoes.
Oh.
I did. I had Converse shoes, and I would write and draw things on them.
Yeah. No, when my dad, we used to call it babysitting. When my dad babysat us.
The best, yes. When your dad had to babysit his children.
My dad was babysitting his children. I think I was 7. We wrote all over ourselves and my new nightgown. My mom was very unhappy. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
She wasn't a very good babysitter.
You got fired from that job?
Supervision was lacking.
Fired.
Got a lot of trouble.
Oh. Well, we hope you have a great week.
Yeah. On that note,
we will see you in another 2.
See you in another 2.
Bye.
Bye.